So I'm tidying up the workshop and I found this old demonstration model for different types of hinge. The main types of hinge that we use, all Blum ones. I thought I'd show it to you before I dismantle it because I don't particularly need it anymore. For most of the hinges that I'm going to show you, the standard ones that we use most often anyway, I've got these crib sheets which I'll make available as a download at my member-only site. Look at the links below to have a look at that and see what you think. Starting with probably the most common hinge, it's just the standard sprung overlay hinge, that's the one at the bottom. Overlay means that the door in its closed position is sitting over the edge of the carcass. So it has a straight arm, and that's how it looks when it's open. Now these can cope fine with up to, that's a 25mm thickness door there. It does come quite close, and if it hadn't had a chamfered corner there, it might just catch the adjacent door. There are other variations that can cope with thicker doors. They have a different, what's called a different opening geometry. So they might sort of throw inwards a little bit more as they turn to 90 degrees. The one above it is the same, but it's got Blumotion added. So that's a soft close mechanism, which you can turn off there. You hear that click, that's it turning off, and now it will just be sprung. So sprung means that it pulls itself closed. The codes for that, at the top here, that's your overlay hinge, and they were those first two, sprung, and the top one was Blumotion. So moving around the model now, this is an inset hinge. You see how it's cranked, whereas that's straight armed. So it's inset or fully cranked. I'll just turn this model round so we can get a better shot. So with this type of hinge, you can set your door within the frame. Now a common usage of it is to have the door set back so it sits flush with the front edge of the frame, and then you can just create the gap that you need between it. We often use it where the door sits forward of the frame, and we'd have a cover strip, maybe ascribed to the wall here, so you get a flush look, but you can easily fix your cover strip straight onto the front edge of the carcass. I've talked about this in a lot of my other videos about alcove furniture. So in the same way, you've got your standard sprung one there and your Blumotion variation. Now the codes for that hinge, they'd be this one, so that's the inset hinge, sprung and Blumotion. There's also a half overlay, which I don't think I've got on here, but say if you had two doors and you wanted them to meet exactly on the edge of the carcass there, you'd have two half overlay hinges, and they would sit like that. Now you may have seen on the chart that I was just looking at, there's the unsprung version. Now an unsprung hinge is much the same as the other, so this would just be a straight arm overlay hinge, but there's no spring, which means that it's not pulling itself to closed, it's just free swinging. The situation where you want that is when you've got a touch to open mechanism. The Blum touch to open mechanism consists of a sprung piston, which clicks into place there. When you press it, as long as you've got about 2mm of travel, it pushes out with some force. In its outward position, the magnet is demagnetized. That connects to a plate, which can either be a stick-on one like this, or there's a screw-on variation, which is like a washer with a little countersink and a special screw that comes with it. Now this doesn't work so well because it's such a small door, but these generally work very nicely. You get just the right amount of push open, and then it would, on a normal door, it would then just freely swing. So the codes for them, that was a straight arm variation or overlay. Unsprung, that's your code. Tip on pistons, different variations of how you can buy them. And the tip on piston adapter plate. Now there is an inline style that clips on to a plate that's screwed in invisibly, doesn't have these wings. You can also drill them straight into the carcass edge in a 10mm hole. Now, I should say that these are the codes that I order with at a place called Heart Wholesale. The website for Heart Wholesale is blum.org, although they're actually just a Blum reseller, and they sell a lot of other stuff like Hayfully as well. So the codes might vary slightly versus what you would see in the Blum technical catalogue, but they'll be much the same. So moving around now, what we've got here is straight arm hinges. These might be a slightly older variation, but they're fitted on a face frame style of mounting plate. You'll see these used a lot more in America than in Britain because they're much keener on the traditional face frame look. So their kitchen cabinets very often will have a solid wood frame that would sit in front of and concealing the front edge of the carcass. So not quite what you're seeing here, but if you imagine this was the face frame, then you can't fit a standard mounting plate which relies on fitting onto a flat surface there. So Blum have this adapted mounting plate where these wings come forward and the screwed position is much nearer the front edge. They're quite good as well for pre-fitting the mounting plates to the hinges, pre-fitting them to the door, and then just offering the door up to wherever you want to fit it, because they have a little hook there which stops in the correct position against the front edge. So sometimes I've used them even in a normal carcass situation just to offer up and screw in nice and quick. They're also very good for adding overlay doors to old frames, like the old Victorian alcove frames that you see around Sheffield. I've sometimes sort of overclad them with this system because I can give a nice clean modern look and float the door over the sort of imperfect frame, and then yeah, it just makes it easy, which is always good. Now here's a funny little hinge. These are favoured by Sharp's bedrooms in Britain. Now I think in fitting that, I've made a bit of a mistake where this is the one hinge where the distance of the drilled 35mm hole to the edge has to be very, very small, smaller than standard, to prevent it binding. That sort of detail you'll find in the Blum catalogue for the relevant hinge. Now that has this funny little mounting plate. I've never particularly trusted these to be strong and long lasting, but they are used by Sharp's and other fitted bedroom manufacturers. And I think the benefit is that you can build a kind of flat face frame without any full carcassing inside, and then fairly easily just kind of float your doors over it and just fit them onto the face frame. So the codes for them, they're not standard for us, but you will find them in the Blum Orange book, which I recommend getting. You can get it for free. I'll put details in the description below. So moving around now, this is a post hinge. It has another name, which is, yeah, that's right, blind corner, a blind corner hinge. So that again you'll find in the Blum catalogue, but I haven't got it on my crib sheet. Although we do use this from time to time. So this is a closed position. This is useful sometimes for kitchen corner cabinets, where you just end up with the closed position of the door being in line with a panel or a post. So they're kind of funny shape and can be a bit hard to get your head round, so I hope this video is useful. Something to know about them is they have a non-standard drilling position. So the position from the front edge of your carcass to the drilled hole is usually, I think I'm right in saying, usually 37mm. For this hinge, it's for some reason 21.5mm. But they come with all the usual variations. See, that's the Blumotion variation at the bottom on this one, and the adjustment screws for moving front and back work much the same. Now around here we've got a 170-degree overlay hinge. Now these I'm pretty sure only come in overlay, but if you wanted to get a half cranked, half overlay or fully inset effect, you would upgrade your mounting plate to something thicker that would throw it in. These ones are very bulky, so they're not the prettiest looking things, but they do give you that smooth acting overlay, and they're carefully made in such a way that they throw the door out so it goes out and past any door or filler that's next to them. They don't, as far as I know, come with any built-in soft close. It's possible that's being developed or does exist and I'm out of date. But they can be upgraded to soft close with one of these kind of lipstick things that clips onto them. And that used to be how soft close was added to all the other types of hinge. But with this type, it's particularly bulky. Your adjustment screw, you have to take it to that position to get your screwdriver in. And like with the other hinges, that adjustment screw nearer the front is the one that would adjust everything that way. The one at the back would adjust it in and out. Now finally, I don't think I showed you, this is just the unsprung variation of the inset hinge or cranked hinge. Now that is just a very small selection of all the Blum hinges available. There's a few more variations shown on my crib sheets. I've also shown a couple variations of mounting plates using the standard screw or the Euro screw that needs a 5mm drilled hole. There are so many others. You may have noticed on these we've got a type of mounting plate that has built-in adjustment. So if you turn that screw, it will raise and lower the hinge. I don't actually tend to use them. Get yourself one of these Blum books. Go to the hinge system section. This gives you some idea of the range there, look. And even apart from the inset, half inset and overlay variations, you've got different types of fixing methods for the boss, like just screwing in or knock in with a kind of expanding fitting, and various other variations which I won't go into. So I hope that's helpful. Do let me know if that helped you, and do go check out the member site where there's loads of extra content that I guarantee you'll find useful if you've watched this far, because it must be the sort of content that you would like. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time.